Hello everyone and welcome to this delayed episode of the Brunton Bugle. Now, as I'm sure you can understand, after the announcement of the death of Queen Elizabeth, the original episode of the Brunton Bugle for last week was put on hold, especially with the anticipated postponement of the Harrogate game. Now, with the Mansfield game going ahead this evening, we've done a bit of editing to take out the Harrogate preview bit and the predictions for that game, but you'll probably still hear a couple of references to Harrogate during the episode. Apologies for that, there's no way really we could have taken those bits out. Also note that the chat about Fishbone's loan recall was before we knew he was going to Mansfield Town on loan. We'll cover that in more detail in the Wimbledon preview. Thank you once again for your patience on this. Normal service will resume from Friday. Cheers and off the Blues.
Here we come, blue and white, and we're looking good. You'll be in for a fight, and we fight pretty good. Getting goals is our job, and we get goals good. Looking good, we are Carlisle United.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Brunton Bugle, the number one place to get your Carlisle United fix in the podcast world. I'm Lee Rooney.
And I'm Dan McLennan.
It's a 6-goal thrill at Brunton Park as United are held to a draw by bottom club Rochdale. We look back on a frustrating afternoon for the Blues last weekend, while previewing back-to-back away games against Harrogate Town and Mansfield Town this week. Yeah, it was one of those days, wasn't it? Last weekend, Dan. You know, just things just didn't seem to go quite right, but we still got a point from it.
Yeah, it was a bit of both, wasn't it? Was it 2 points dropped or one gained? You know.
Well, we'll discuss that shortly, won't we? There you go. How are you doing, mate? You all good?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad.
Yeah, 6 games into the season now, feeling a bit more confident than you were prior to the season starting, or are you about the same?
Well, we're going to win the league, so...
Well, there you go. You didn't predict us to win the league in the thing, so you must be more confident.
I was being polite.
Yes, anyway, let's get straight into it then. As usual, the episode is sponsored by the Carlisle United Supporters Club London branch. The London branch is open to all Carlisle United fans. They've got members from Cornwall to Dundee and Houston, Singapore, and of course every part of London and the South East. They regularly meet up on away trips as well as arranging many social events, sports games and fundraising for the club. They'll be providing us with information for the away games as part of the preview section this season too. You can find out more about London branch at their website, carlisle.londonbranch.org. We've got a few little things planned with London branch. Hopefully we're going to look into sorting out, aren't we, Dan? Very early days. Potentially we've got something exciting to sort with them, but we'll have to wait and see with that one.
Does it involve cheese and wine?
Oh, we could make it involve cheese and wine, couldn't we? You used to have fun and games with that, didn't you?
The good old days. The good old days.
Good old days, indeed. Just a reminder, obviously, to everybody, yes, you can subscribe to the podcast on all good podcast apps, whether that's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, what's the other one? Pocket Cast, that's the one I use. I always forget that one. Just click subscribe whenever episode comes out. You'll get it straight, not straight into your thing, but a little notification telling you can download it and listen to it at your leisure. You can follow us on social media at Brunton Bugle on Twitter and Instagram. We're also on Facebook. Just search for Brunton Bugle and click like. You can also find us on email us, bruntonbugle@gmail.com, or you find us on the Be Just and Fear Not Facebook group. It's a great group to join that if you haven't already. It's about 2,300 members of it, really, really active. And also on the cumbins.net message board. I think I've summed it all up there, haven't I? all the usual intro stuff.
Yeah.
All covered. There's no other bits really we need to cover at the moment, is there, I don't think? Off the top of my head.
No,
Anyway,
I can't think of anything.
Let's get into the news section then. A couple of little bits of news this week, isn't there? We've had a quiet few weeks, and now suddenly we've had a couple of little bits. And both of them are sort of interlinked, aren't they, actually? Because a nice little segue we can go from one into the other. So, yeah, the first bit is Sam Fishburne. His loan spell at Blythe Spartans has been ended early. Yes, he was supposed to stay 3 months at Crofts Park at the National League North side. But it's been terminated early. He struggled to make an impact, really, hasn't he? It's been a tough one for him, this loan spell, I think. He's not... When you think about his loan spell he had at Lancaster City last season, where he was, from game one, he was right on it. He's not really been given the chance, has he?
No, Blythe haven't been doing brilliantly either. I think they're about 18th out of 24 in the National League North. They've only won 2 games, lost 4. I think it's a case of they've been struggling. I think the manager possibly he hasn't wanted to chuck him in. I mean, they got hammered on Saturday at Peterborough Sports. Who,
I mean, come on, National League North. It's ridiculous, isn't it?
I've just got the league table here, and Kings Lynn are top, Banbury are second, Leamington sixth, and Peterborough Sports are 10th.
No,
that just shows. I mean, I'm big into all of this because I'm a stato, but when you look at all the various maps that are out there of the divisions, the drag towards the south it's getting worse every year. It really is.
Yeah, it definitely is. Yeah.
Anyways,
he's been recalled. United haven't made any comment yet, but we understand Paul Simpson is going to in his pre-match presser, which is probably taking place right about now while we're recording, isn't it, Dan? So typically, well, you'll find out by the time you listen to this why he's been recalled. But there's a possibility maybe there's a bit of concern with Edmondson picking up a couple of injuries that maybe we need an extra body in there to take a place on the bench. Maybe
possible.
I suspect he's probably looking. Get him training with the first team for a little bit and then get him out back on loan to someone else maybe for the rest of till the Christmas at least. Because he needs to be playing games. There's no point in him being back and just not involved. Which does bring us quite nicely on, doesn't it, Dan? To the reserves. They opened up their Central League Cup campaign this week with a win. They beat Fleetwood Town down at Fleetwood 1-0, and the goal was scored by none other than Sam Fishburn. So there you go. Instant impact on his return. Yeah, it sounds like quite an entertaining game on this one, doesn't it, Dan? I watched a bit of the YouTube highlights, and plenty of chances at each end, wasn't there? It was, and they had a strong team, didn't they?
Yeah, well, they have a proper under-23 setup still, don't they? So they're a bit more used to this. I mean, these games, the Central League Cup, first of all, it's almost a secret at our club, and that really annoys me because, it's just reserve team football. I mean, I'm not going to go on to a rant. I think we should have a proper reserve team anyway. I think being in the league, it should be a rule. Yeah. But these games are obviously, they're competitive. Forgive, people who haven't played too many minutes a game. I think we've also got Blackpool and Accrington in our group.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, on the Central League Cup website, we were actually down as the home team for this. So I wonder if we've asked to switch because obviously Fleetwood have the excellent facility that they use, don't they?
Yeah, so I think that might be the reason. But yeah, so he got the winning goal in the 90th minute, did Sam. Good little bit of play by Jack Stretton down the right, beat his man, gets into the box and plays it across the 6-yard box for. I mean, it's a tap in a sense, but it's good movement, isn't it, to get into the box and finish. That's the key thing, and that's what we want to see from him because we saw that with the goals he scored for Lancaster City and how well he did for the youth team. We just need to see that at a slightly higher level now from Sam. So hopefully that'll give him a little bit of confidence whatever happens next, whether he goes back out on loan or he stays with the first team squad. Good bit of game time there for the likes of Idahan, Ellis, Charters, Hilton and Stretton. All get some good minutes under their belts. And Gabe Breeze got a bit of praise, didn't he, as well? He seems to be it seems to be basically they've looked for what Kelly played in the game against. Sorry, he didn't play in a game, did he? The game we don't talk about, he featured in. So they thought, well, give Breeze a bit of game time in this one, didn't they?
Yeah, I'd say that's all that is. Which is only right. I mean, I'd maybe like to see Breeze go out on a loan if any sort of like National League North, National League needed keeper.
I wonder if they're maybe looking and thinking, wait till Scotty Simons gets fit again in, I think it's about December, isn't it, with his shoulder injury?
Yeah.
And maybe then you look to send him out on loan to get a bit of game time.
Although you with goalkeepers, you can usually put recalls in for that very reason, can't you?
Yeah. And the thing is with that as well is if you send him out on loan, right about then teams will start to pick up injuries with goalkeepers and they might need someone. So it's probably going to work out well. So there you go. For one game down for the 6, isn't it? You play each team home and away in the Central League Cup, so that's one game down the competition.
This cup is notorious for rearranged and cancelled.
Yeah, it drags out all season, doesn't it?
There are fixtures available on various websites, but treat them with a pinch of salt.
Yes, and last time we a couple of years ago we got to the final, didn't we? Well, we played Bournemouth, who, as you would expect, had a ridiculously good squad, so didn't really have much chance of winning that. But yeah, good experience that was at St George's Park for the players. Right, let's go on to the match reviews then, Dan. Here we go. Carl United 3, Rochdale 3. I mean, I mean, fair play. If you were in neutral comes this game, you'd be entertained, wouldn't you? Goals galore. If you're a Carlisle fan, you're tearing your hair out, though, aren't you? Because, one of those days where we finally get, for the first time in, I think it was something like a year and a half, wasn't it? That we scored 3 goals in a game, and we still don't manage to get all 3 points.
Yeah, it was one of those. It was just, we always seem to have at this time of year a bit of a crazy match. I remember we had a 4-4 with Wimbledon.
A 4-4 with Cambridge as well.
Yeah, Cambridge,
yeah. Don't know what because it wasn't even red hot or anything, was it? It was just a strange one. It
was actually meant to rain all Saturday, but it didn't really come in the end. So.
Yeah, just like I said, one of those frustrating days, and in Rochdale being bottom of the league, you do look at it and think to yourself, there's a good chance this to get 3 points on board and push up the table, and then you end up getting a point. But actually, you come out thinking actually I'm fairly happy with that because of what happened during a period of the game. Team selection, were you? I mean, obviously we got to finally see the back three that we've been banging on about as being, potentially one of the best in the division. Probably fair to say didn't quite work that well, which we'll talk about as one of the talking points later on. But Edmondson back into the start 11 didn't last very long, and then Callum Guy was a surprise. He was the absent one who that Simo was mentioned in the pre-match presser, wasn't he? That he didn't really want to tell anyone about. So, yeah. Guy's absence and Harris starting. What were your thoughts when you saw the start 11?
Given injuries, etc., I'd say it was probably what we expected. Maybe a case for Devitt over Harris. Mm-hmm. A lot of people would have went for, but no, pretty much what you would have expected. Yeah,
one of those days, isn't it? Well, let's talk about the goals then. First up, Rochdale took the lead on 22 minutes through Scott Quigley. Deadline day signing for them. Tell you what, he looks a good signing for them, doesn't he? He really, really was. I was really impressed with him, and I don't think Rochdale are going to be down at the bottom at the end of the season now, based on what I saw at the weekend. I know it's hard to judge when you watch one game.
Radio Cumbria rang me afterwards. I went on to give my review, and I think just before I went on, you'll know yourself, having done it, you can hear the fellas chatting away in your ear, and I think Lummy mentioned the same, and they've got enough fight. They won't be at the bottom come the end.
If Quigley stays fit, they'll be fine because he'll get about 10 to 15 goals. Because he, like I said, not just the way he took his goals, but his actual target man play was really, really impressive. He gave Huntington a tough game in the weekend. He really did. Yeah. But this was a weird first goal, wasn't it? It's a really strange one, this, because Sinclair was actually being quite well marshalled on the right by Mellish, and he hits sort of a low sort of cross that probably wasn't going to go to anyone, or would have been intercepted by Gibson. Mellish sticks a foot out. He sort of clips the bottom of Mellish's heel and loops up over the defenders, and just it landed about as perfectly as it could for Quigley to sort of chest it in at the far post, didn't it?
It was. I don't think at the time people realised that sort of deflection part of it, because it happened so quickly. But Quigley couldn't miss, could he? No. I don't think the defence were really to blame for it.
No, I think of all the goals, this is one of the ones where you look, you think, is there much more the defence could have done? I mean, maybe they could have, because of the weird deflection, you think maybe he could have still got ahead to one of Huntington or Feeney, I think it was at the far post, but I don't think you could blame them too much really for this goal. Just really frustrating to go behind there, really, when we'd had such a slow start, didn't we? So it was a tough one. Equaliser though, just 15 minutes later, and that man again, wasn't it? Big Bad John gets his second in 2 games, and
going all Hugo Sanchez, wasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, like it was a good response though, wasn't it? To be fair, they came back strongly.
I think it was important we got a goal before half time.
Absolutely,
because we hadn't started well.
No, we certainly hadn't.
We hadn't started well.
Sluggish.
We only sort of came into the game after they scored, so...
Yeah, definitely. Moxen's corner from the right. Now, funny enough, before this corner was taken, Johnny and I, that I stand in the games with, both sort of said to each other, we're not really liking these lofted corners from the right. So Moxen's corners from the left are great in-swinging, but the out-swing are sort of lofted ones. Not very great, are they? And what do? We go and score from one, basically. But his lofted ball in... Feeney was actually beat into the ball by the Rochdale defender, wasn't he? And he nods it down, and it comes to Mellish, and it sort of sits up quite nicely. And it's an overhead kick, but it's not a traditional overhead kick like, 6 feet in the air, kicking the ball like that, was it? It's sort of hooked over his shoulder. But plenty of power and accuracy into the top corner, wasn't it? It was a great little finish.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No, yeah, it was, it's Big John, what more can you say?
Yeah, absolutely. You know exactly what to expect from him, don't you? So, nicely set us up for going into the second half. We'll talk about the chances we had before the break in a minute. Start the second half, started it slightly lively, but then just tailed off really quickly, didn't we? And yeah, it's so frustrating to give away 2 quick-fire goals. The first one, really frustrating. I think Harris should do a bit better with the aerial ball into the edge of the Rochdale box. Doesn't really win it. The ball comes forward and then it comes to quickly, and he turns Huntington really well. I have to say, it's a really clever bit of play. Huntington sells himself a little bit on that one. Turns and the through ball for Rodney is perfect, isn't it? The run from Rodney as well is really good. So it doesn't really give Feeney much of a choice. If Feeney takes him out, he's getting sent off basically. Through on goal and then a really good finish from the edge of the box past Howley. What I would say is when you watch it back, Feeney steps up or stands still. Rodney's about 4 or 5 yards offside. That's one of those ones, isn't it? He just wasn't quite on his game as much as Feeney as he has been in previous matches. I don't know if you agree on that one.
Yeah. I think, again, sort of this was a point I was going to cover at the end, but with the back three, Feeney's spent all pre-season playing as the central man of the three. And now Huntington's come in. He's the obvious, because of his age and less pace, to play there, whereas Feeney's gone right. And I just think some of this showed in their goals. Yeah,
I think you're absolutely spot on.
I think it'll come. You know, they'll be training on it this week, next week. You know, it'll come. But
yeah, I think you're absolutely spot on there, Dan. To be fair, I think it's going to take him a little bit of time to get used to playing that role, and because people might think, he's just playing in defence. I mean, it is different. Your positioning, everything is going to be completely different. You're not, you've got to be more aware of your wing back around you and stuff like that as well. So no, I think you're absolutely right. I think you can maybe leave it down to that on this occasion, I suppose. Yeah, but I think it's one of those ones. I think if he's a little bit more up to speed, at that point, he just stands still and Rodney's about 4 or 5 yards offside when the ball's played free. It's just one of those things. The most annoying thing is that, astonishingly, from the kickoff, we pretty much conceded the second goal, or the third goal even, didn't we? It was. I genuinely did not realise how quickly it was after the kickoff until I watched back the highlights. I don't know why in my head I thought there was 2 or 3 minutes afterwards, but no, pretty much straight from the kickoff, long ball forward, we lose the ball again. It comes to Moxen, and it's just so sloppy from Moxen, isn't it? He's got to do a little bit better with that ball to Mellish. Sinclair nips in, does a little bit of good play with Jimmy Ball. Ball gets to the edge of the box, finds Quigley and acres of space, and Feeney's got to be a little bit tighter on Quigley there as well. Decent chance for him, and he puts the ball in the back of the net. Yeah, really, really frustrating.
Really annoying couple of minutes, and it's something Paul Simpson mentioned at the start of the week. We're not starting halves well at the moment.
No, absolutely not.
And this was a crazy sort of 90 seconds where we, at this point you're like, bloody hell. But come back we did.
Come back we did indeed. Really good response to going down. Only 6 minutes later, United got a goal back into the game, and the catalyst for this was Jamie Devitt, wasn't he? It was actually, to be fair, Dennis actually starts the move for this goal really well, because the ball forward, he brings it down well to win the ball ahead of the Rochdale player, lays it off for Devitt, and that, oh my God, that pass from Devitt.
Yeah.
Oh, I think as Mike said, there should have been a not safe for work.
Someone was trying to tell me there was a deflection on it. No,
literally, we were at the right height for it. As soon as he hit it, we were all like, wow,
if that pass had been in the Champions League this midweek, it would be on every Twitter and Facebook football account going. Yeah. Because it was absolutely disgusting.
Watch
in a good way.
Watch the pitch side Blues footage of it, because that shows you that it wasn't deflected. It shows you how well it struck it was. And the game it wasn't just the fact that it hit in space. It's the weight he got on it, and the fact that he got it enough to know it would hold up enough for Gibson to get there and get the ball. And obviously Gibson did get to the ball, playing on the wing at this point, because we switched to 4-3-3. Took on his man, got to the byline, put a ball across, and Gibson, I still can't work out if Gibson actually has touched it. I think he has touched it, but I think it's like with the back of his heel or something like that, isn't it? It's a weird touch he gets, which sends it towards the far post, and O'Donnell has a despairing dive and doesn't keep it out. And fair play to the linesman for spotting that, because to see that from that far away.
It's about the only thing he spotted all afternoon.
Yeah, he was a bit slack at times, wasn't he? I think it's
atrocious.
Yeah, and he obviously the goal was awarded. Took another 20 minutes though to get the equaliser, didn't it? Did have a few chances in the meantime though, to be fair. And it was Paul Huntington. He was the one who drew his level of a goal very much made in the Great Border City, wasn't it? Owen Moxen takes the corner. Perfect placement for it in the near post, and great little flick by Huntington. Gave O'Donnell no chance.
What a proper near post header this was.
You know, it reminded me Scott Derby used to score a few goals like that for us from corners. Really good.
It's such a simple goal, and it's something we haven't done for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
Reece Bennett did it now and again.
Yeah.
You know, he could do it.
Hayden as well, I suppose, can do it as well. But
you know, just a properly placed corner with defenders attacking it. And, you know, if it doesn't go in, the keeper at best is palming it back down. Mm-hmm. And you've got the likes of Dennis and that who could, you know.
Huntington's going to cause problems on those set pieces. He looks like he's been unleashed. I do wonder if his former clubs he was never really given that role, because he's not really scored that many goals in his career. If you look back, he's only maybe 1 or 2 a season.
Yeah.
So maybe he's enjoying a bit more freedom now. Interesting. I've got a good quiz question for you, actually, Dan, based on that. So Paul Huntington, obviously, Carlisle-born, scored the goal. Who was the last Carlisle-born player to score a league goal for Carlisle? I said league goal there because Jared Branthwaite scored in the trophy we don't talk about. So who was the last Carlisle-born player to score a league goal for Carlisle?
Last Carlisle-born player. Right, let me have a think. Come back to that.
We'll come back to that one, but it's a good quiz question for everyone at home as well. So who's the last Carlisle-born player to score a league goal for Carl United? So there you go. Let's talk about some of the chances then, Dan. I mean, you know what? It's weird. With hindsight, you look back and you think, it's a good point that in the end, because we played poorly, you know, we conceded 3 goals and that. But actually, we had quite a few chances in this game. A lot more than I think the team have probably been given credit for. It's just that horrible, you know, slow start and then that horrible first 10, 15 minutes of the second half that have killed us, really. You look back at it, I mean, for Rochdale, the only other chance I could think of that they had, bar the goals, was that early Quigley shot that Holy saved quite comfortably, didn't he? Beyond that, they didn't really threaten that much. In terms of us, obviously we had Finback's far post header that came off the defender and went behind for the corner that led to Mellish's goal. But then after we took the lead, 2 really good chances to make it 2-1, didn't we? The first one, Jaden Harris. You know what? Jaden Harris got a bit of stick from some of our fans after this game, and I thought he didn't play that badly, you know. I thought he was all right. He wins the ball back in midfield really, really well, sets it off to Patrick, and credit to Patrick, waited a perfect ball through for Christian Dennis, who once again beat the offside trap, but the Rochdale keeper, O'Donnell, came out and made a really good save, actually, didn't he?
Yeah, very good save.
Yeah, couldn't really grumble about that. But Amari. Another game where he's had an open goal and he's not scored. He just needs one to go in off his backside, doesn't he?
Yeah,
that's the problem at the moment. He just needs a little bit of luck, really. I mean, this one, again, full credit to Jaden Harris for showing good determination down the right. Nick the ball off Brearley and brilliant strength to get around him. At first I thought, he's going to give a foul there. But actually, when you look back at it, there's no foul. He just gets his body in front of him, wins the ball, plays the ball across the 6-yard box. And I think this one is tougher than the miss he had against, was it Swindon he missed against, the chance? I seem to remember the one where he missed the open goal.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah, it would have been. But yeah, if you look back at it, the defender just before the defender who's with him actually gets a little bit of it's not a massive amount, but a little bit of a touch on it, which is probably enough to put him off. And it's coming across so quickly, he has to let it come across to his left foot, but he just doesn't set him to that right, does he? And ends up skewing the ball wide. And I'm sure he doesn't need us to tell him that he needs to get a goal soon, because otherwise he's going to struggle to get in the team. But you know what? He's a confident lad usually, so I'm sure he'll get one soon enough. Into the second half, he did actually have another good chance, Patrick, from the edge of the box. It was a long ball forward from Moxen, well nodded down by Dennis, and he sort of took it on like a half volley, sort of side-footed curling shot, wasn't it? It was a really weird one. And at the time I thought, he's put it well over. But actually, looking back at the highlights, wasn't that far away from scoring. It was only maybe half a yard over the bar. And then obviously prior to Huntington's goal, the corner prior to that, Moxen put the ball in. It was nodded down by Huntington, and Mellis tried a little shot on the turn that was just deflected over, wasn't it? So plenty of chances. It wasn't like we didn't have many chances in this game. It just defensively we switched off twice, basically, wasn't it? And that's what nearly cost us. So
it was annoying because if this game had continued, I would have fancied us to win it.
Yeah, although you say that, if you look at the stats and all that, I don't think we barely had a shot after we took the lead. That's the most. After we equalised, I do apologise. After we made it 3-3, there wasn't really any other big chances. I mean, Rochdale basically saw the game out at that point, which is full credit to Bentley in the way he is already taken charge there. So yeah, there you go. Right, we've got 2 60-second reviews to do. Firstly, I have to apologise to Ryan Devlin. I had a bit of a problem with the sound file he sent over. He was going to send us in one, but we'll get Ryan to do one for a future game, definitely. So instead, we've got 2 files here. We've got one from... I'm not sure who this one's going to be because I can't see. Because of the way the files appear on the system, I can't see whether this is Matt Spooner or Regan Thompson. I think this one might be Matt Spooner, so we'll try Matt's first. It's Matt Spooner's thoughts on the game.
I was really disappointed to see a slow start again on Saturday. I think Simo's alluded to it in the press recently. The first game of the season, we really started on the front foot. We were pressing high up the pitch, winning it back in the final third and creating chances, but I think it caught us out. Edmondson lost that ball in the middle of the pitch. It summed us up. We just didn't look fast enough. There was no urgency. Moxen probably didn't have his finest hour for us, but I think he done really well to come back and get a cracking set piece from the corner, which found Huntington's head. And all in all, I think it was a game that showed how we miss Guy when he isn't there. He maybe isn't the most finessed player, but he certainly showed at the weekend with him missing what we didn't have. And I think the last 10 seconds we should just clap and give a big round of applause to how well Jamie Devitt changed the game with that sexy pass.
There we go. Thank you very much, Matt. For that. Hey, absolutely. I couldn't disagree with much of that, really. I mean, the point about Guy is a really good one, actually. You know, for a lot of time, people have been saying, "Oh, Guy's not been as good this season. He struggled at the start," but he makes us tick, doesn't he?
Yeah, I give him not stick, but after I mentioned that the next game, he actually had a lot better game, I thought. And yeah, it was a shame he picked up that knock in training because, you know, there was maybe a little sign he was starting to play himself back into a bit of form. So
yeah, interesting point you made about Edmondson losing that ball as well. He never really got into the game, did he? He got that early injury and Simo basically took the decision out of his hands, didn't he? He said, "Look, you're not moving freely enough. I'm taking you off here." Which is it's unusual, isn't it? Because managers don't often do that, do they? They tend to trust players, but Simo just had enough, hadn't he, basically? And just decided, no, I'm going to make the change here. And yeah, Amari came on probably a bit sooner than he expected, I think it's fair to say. Yeah, right, well, let's have a Regan's one then. So here's Regan's, and let's see if he uses his usual catchphrase in this 60-second review.
Obviously, it goes without saying the first 30 minutes were awful, back to front. Defensively, Feeney and Huntington will probably grow together, but I think it needs Feeney to step back and let Hunt be more of the leadership, and Feeney should grow a bit further from that. Going forward, I think we just tried to force it a bit too much. If we'd have played a bit more possession football, then we'd have beat them quite comfortably. They just seemed like they wanted to give us the ball back as soon as possible, really, before they'd got the second goal. I didn't really like the look of Dennis and Edmo up top together from the off. I just think he encouraged us to just force it a bit more, whereas if we have the legs up there early on, we can maybe pass it into Patrick a bit more and play from there and get Gibson into the game a bit more. You take a point, obviously, from that position, but being 3-1 down is not really good enough against them, but fair play for showing the character to get it back. It's good that we've had that early in the season as well, because it's a bit of a learning curve, and you don't want that happening later in the season when you've got maybe a bit of a run-in. We're still destined to hammer somebody though, so hopefully that comes on Saturday, up the Blues.
Oh, it's a bit disappointing. Didn't use his catchphrase, did he, Dan? That's the usual one. I was fully expecting him to say that, but
he must be saving it for the 3 points.
Exactly. You know, you can't be saying that after a 3-3 draw against the team that's bottom of the league, can you? Really? But there you go. I couldn't disagree with a lot of that. Again, about the interesting point he made about the captain thing. Sorry, not the captain thing, some more the leadership thing at the back. The feeling that maybe, not so much Feeney feels undermined, but it's difficult with Huntington almost bossing him about and telling him go here, go there from the centre. Do you think that's an issue?
I think it'll be something to work on. I mean, you can tell Huntington's got the experience from the higher level, where they probably do talk a lot more regardless, Yeah. Like I say, I think it's early days, and once they get used to it, they should be fine.
Interesting the point you made about possession side of things. 55% possession, though, for us this weekend. And I think it's one of the few times this season where we've been on top in terms of possession. A lot of games we haven't had the ball much. So yeah, maybe even just keeping the ball a little bit more, even beyond that, would be useful. Other starting points I've raised here, Dan, I think we've pretty much covered a lot of these. I mean, we've covered the bit about the first choice back three. I think we just feel it's just going to be a bit of time for them to get used to each other, isn't it? And the different role for Feeney, I think, as much as anything, is going to be the point there. Big John Mellish, man of the match again. That's his third time this season already. It was
really... one of those. We always have a chat about man of the match on about 80 minutes before it's announced, and there wasn't really many standout characters because he was very Jekyll and Hyde. And John probably had the most consistent game.
But it's crazy that we conceded 3 goals and looked a bit sloppy at times in defence, but he didn't actually have a bad game, Mellish, did he?
No.
And he obviously played in midfield for a good half an hour or so of the game as well, didn't he? So yeah, he's he had another good game, to be fair. I was quite impressed with him, and at the end of the day, he's basically made that role his own now, hasn't he? Poor old Duncan Idahan is probably going to have to wait a little bit before he gets a chance, or John picks up a knock, maybe the only way. We talked about the slow starts costing us. Just in terms of midfield, Devitt worth a start now, maybe. I mean, I don't think Harris played too bad. I actually thought Moxen had a really poor game at times. I thought
the first hour,
sloppy.
The first hour, Moxen would probably admit himself he didn't have the best of games. Yeah. But once Devitt came on, they started having a bit of a who can ping it the best competition. And it was like some sort of, FIFA on the PlayStation tournament.
I get the reason why he played Harris, because he's a big physical lad, isn't he? And you know what? He does win the ball quite well in midfield quite often. Yeah. He does need to learn not to dive in as much. So I
think he'll probably take this season with a bit of coaching, won't he?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's on a 3-year deal, so we've got time to develop him as a player. But I genuinely think there could actually be a really good player in there if you work on polishing some of his rough edges. You could have a really good player in there. Right, well, before we go to the second half of the show, Dan.
Quiz question. I've got this. On. Right. It's about 15 years ago, isn't it? Give or take.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. And the answer you're looking for is Paul Murray.
Correct. 16 years.
While we've been recording, I've been working out in my head. Granger was born in Penrith.
Yeah.
Rigg was Keswick way.
Yeah.
Dempsey was Whitehaven. Beck was Sunderland.
Yeah.
There was a couple of others. Brad Potts was Hexham.
Yeah.
Simonton was out west.
Workington, yeah.
And eventually I thought, Paul Murray, I'm sure he was born in Carlisle, even though he's a Penrith lad sort of thing.
Well, it's funny, you did actually miss one of the...
Lewis Guy as well.
He's Penrith born.
Yeah.
So Granger and Guy are both Penrith born, so that's the bit. So it's mad that, isn't it? 16 years.
When would it be? I would say 06 or 7-ish, I guess.
Start of the 06-07 season. Yeah, the first day of the season against Doncaster,
1-0, yeah.
The only goal he scored for us.
It was after about 4 minutes, wasn't it? Really early.
Only goal of his second spell with us as well. I'd love to know before that, because I think before that, you could be
possibly Paul Murray.
Matt Jansen, I would have thought.
Yeah.
I think Matt Jansen might won, because Scott Dobie was born in Workington as well. I should have.
Dobie was another that I discounted. Yeah.
So it's quite a big gap, isn't it? When you consider all things, really, you think you'd have a few more, but there you go. Right, League 2 roundup quickly, Dan. No real massive shock results, I think, this week. I think it's fair to say. Orient still going high. The only unbeaten team left in the division now, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely flying, aren't they? They're getting the crowds in, playing well.
He's a good manager, Richie Wellens, to be fair, isn't he? It's one of those ones. I think he chose badly with Salford because there was so much expectation there. it's not. I mean, with the nicest will of the world, they're not a proper football club, are they? Really? Whereas Orient are a proper football league club, and you get the impression he's really settled there. And I'm sure. I mean, they've not made a massive amount of additions in the summer either, so he's done it generally with what was already there. So done a decent job. I think was it George Moncourt that they signed this summer? I think, or someone like that, wasn't it? I think.
Yeah.
Someone like that who's probably made the big difference. So there you go. Looking down through some of the other results, Barrow's still flying high, but they got beat their second defeat of the season against Northampton.
Yeah, they played a proper team and got beat up.
Funny that, isn't it? Stevenage, late goals again. I mean, surely the luck's going to run out on that sooner or later, but fair play to Steve Evans. He's doing a hell of a job there. A great result for them at Crewe Alexandra. At the bottom, no wins for Hartlepool, Crawley and Rochdale still. I mean, Rochdale look like they'll get a win soon enough, I think, to be honest. I was like I said, we were quite impressed with them. Crawley, I wasn't that impressed in the open day, so I'm not that surprised. Hartlepool, it won't be long before Paul Hartley's under pressure there, will it?
No, they're not doing well at all, are they?
No, I mean, the result, one more draw at Colchester weekend, another team that are really struggling actually early on. I mean, they'll probably take that, but even so, you look at when you're playing against a team that's down there with you, you're probably trying to get the 3 points, aren't you, really? Other than that, the only thing I've picked out is Sutton doing a little bit better than expected, aren't they, so far? We thought they might struggle a little bit this season, but actually they're doing all right, aren't they? 2-1 win against Harrogate Town.
Not bad. Although, I'm just pulling it up here, who've they actually played so far,
But beating some of the teams around them as well is always a good thing, though, if you expect them to be a struggler. So,
beating Mansfield was a good result. Beating Barrow was a brilliant result. Yeah,
so there you go. I mean, they've got a couple of good wins there, but there you go. Right, well, that's the first half of the show done then. Dan, we're going to take a short break, and then we'll be back to discuss the two games against Harrogate and Mansfield Town.
Hi, I'm Paul Simpson from the football club. Welcome to the Brunton Bugle.
I love that. It doesn't know how many times I hear it. The fact that he describes himself from the football club makes me laugh every single time.
Brilliant,
Yeah, great stuff. Right, we are going to preview both the Harrogate and Mansfield games in one go, because we're not going to have time to do it a preview game ahead of the Mansfield match. Before we move on to that bit, should we have Mike's question of the week, Dan?
Yeah.
Right, this is Mike's question of the week.
So a notable player that's played for both Carlisle and Harrogate is Mark Beck. Can you name the other 6 clubs that he's played for? And I'm going to include loan spells in this.
Well, I think I can do that.
Yeah, I can.
Should we save that till later on to do that just before the X-Files section? Maybe?
Yeah, I think it's quite an easy one, this.
I feel like it's easy as well. There's one in my head that I'm not 100% on, but I'm 99% certain on it, but we'll have to wait and see. Right, well, let's get on to the preview section. Now, we haven't got a Behind Enemy Lines with Harrogate Town, because I can't find a Harrogate Town fan
They're a very shy bunch.
Very shy. I mean, there was a very weird tweet about that, there wasn't there? So,
thanks to Gabe Sutton for attempting to find one for us.
Yes, yeah, we appreciate that, but very, very, very shy bunch indeed.
We basically got a reply saying that it was very North Korean-esque, wasn't it? It was like, nobody shall speak out or they will forever be banished.
Yeah, very, very, very strange stuff, wasn't it? But we did manage to get one from our good friends at the Mansfield Matters podcast ahead of the Mansfield game. Craig spoke to us. Some of the stuff we discussed, I mean, clearly we couldn't avoid talking about their playoff heartache in May. They were pretty appalling that game against Port Vale, weren't they, in the playoffs? They had a really bad day at the office then. The lack of transfer activity for them this summer, and Nigel Clough's first 2 years in charge at Field Mill. So here's the chat I had with Craig earlier this week. So for this week's Behind Enemy Lines section of the podcast, we've got Craig from the Mansfield Matters podcast. Craig, let's get straight into it. Talking about Mansfield season so far, it's been a bit of a mixed bag for the Stags, hasn't it? I mean, some impressive wins over Doncaster, Stockport, Wimbledon and Tranmere. I mean, they're teams that a lot of people are expecting to be right up there this season. But then you've had defeats to Salford. I suppose people are expecting Salford to be up there. Leyton Orient have been a slightly surprise package, but very good this season so far. But then probably most disappointingly, the defeat to Sutton. What's the sort of general feeling about your hopes and expectations for this season?
Well, firstly, we always lose to Sutton, so that's never a surprise.
Yeah, well, we lost to them twice last season as well, and it was not good. So there you
go. I think a lot of teams underestimate Sutton United, to be fair. But I think the expectation this year, that's the big thing for us, because of the season we had last year, missing out in the way we did in the playoff final and playing so badly at Wembley. But because of what happened before that, the run we went on, there's a lot of expectation on us this season to go and win promotion and better what we did last year. And the only way to do that is, of course, by finishing in the top 3. So there's huge expectation on us. The way we've played at home has been absolutely fantastic. We've continued the vein of form we were in at home last year and made it a place where teams do not like to come at all. But on the road, up until the Doncaster game, something just was not clicking. Something wasn't right. And I think it's down to not having a big crowd there. You know, you look at the games that we played. Salford, we took as many as we could do, but obviously those that have been to the Peninsula will know it's not the biggest of away ends. Sutton's a nightmare anyway. Leyton Orient, similarly, it's a long trip. And then, of course, Doncaster, it's just down the road for us. So we took over 2,500 and that made the difference. So if we could play the season entirely at home, I think we'd all be happy. But we're still a little bit worried about the away form as yet. But there's a long way to go, isn't there? To be honest, this is the first time I've actually looked at the league table all season. So I never usually look until around Christmas time. So I'm quite pleased to see us in 7th. So that'll do.
It's funny you mentioned about, you get results, at home for you guys. I just remember the fact that we actually are playing at Field Mill this game and just gone back there to check our record at Field Mill. And I think the last time we won there might be 2003. In fact, looking at, 2004, sorry. It's that famous game where Liam Lawrence missed the penalty in the last minute. Which I think cost you guys promotion, actually, didn't it? I think that, because if you'd got the point in that game, you might have had a better chance. But there you go. I think you've almost covered the next question I had there, actually, Greg. I was going to say, let's go back to last May and the playoff heartache. I mean, as you mentioned, you went on such a brilliant run in the second half of the season. It must have been so bitterly disappointing to then put in a performance like that at Wembley, because I didn't watch the full game, but I watched bits of it while I was doing bits in the garden, and I was just genuinely gobsmacked at how poorly you played. I was expecting a really close, well competing contest here, but it just wasn't.
No, it wasn't. And to be fair, I had the pleasure of being able to commentate on that game for the commercial radio station I was working for at the time. And so for me, it was a big occasion. I was doing it with a lad that I've known since he was is little, and sort of be able to give him that was great. Doing it with a guy that I'd met that season as well, we'd become really good friends. So it was a really good occasion for me personally. But then obviously we kicked off and we've just played dreadfully. And Ollie Hawkins did what Ollie Hawkins did best and got himself stupidly yellow carded and then did it again and got sent off. And to be fair, as a lot of fans turn around and perhaps blame Ollie for that, but we're already 2-0 down. We were poor. And I actually said to the lads on the It's All Cobblers to Me podcast after the first leg of the semi-final against Northampton, even if we get through against you guys, if we get Port Vale in the final, we will see you again next season in League Two. Because Port Vale last year, of all the teams that we played, were the side where I thought, other than Sutton, we couldn't cope against. And it proved right. And it was just a horrible day, one which we don't want to remember for a long time. And the thing which sticks out for me is at the very end, I had to go down and do the player interviews at the end of the match. And I was in the dressing room, sort of outside the dressing rooms at Wembley, in the tunnel. You could hear all the Port Vale lot celebrating in their dressing rooms. James Perch, the Mansfield captain on the day, came out. He's Mansfield born and bred. He'd had a torrid season last season with a skull injury, which nearly sort of ended his career. He managed to captain Mansfield on the day. I'm a Mansfield lad, born and bred, love the club, through thick and thin. And we just looked at each other before we started the interview, looking at each other saying, almost as if to say, neither of us want to do this interview right now. We're both absolutely devastated. I've got no idea how we got through that 3 minutes and didn't manage to cry. So it's one we've boxed in, but there's a great quote which people say down the years. I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but, strength comes through pain. And hopefully this year, we've not made rash decisions off the pitch in terms of sacking the manager. We've stuck with a majority of the core of the squad. And hopefully this year we'll kick on and build.
It's interesting you mentioned all those bits about the experience of being at Wembley. I used to work as the media assistant at Carl United, and I got to go to Wembley twice in the Johnson's Paint Trophy. First time around when we got battered by Southampton 4-1, and that I remember that trying to get down to where you mentioned the tunnel bit at the end of the game to go and do the play interviews.
You have to walk past the steps, don't you? It's horrible.
But the thing is, I got to the steps and I couldn't go any further because the Southampton players were coming down with the trophy, and I was like, I don't want to see this. Come on, just let me get down, please. And yeah, I remember feeling that day when you're in the tunnel and you're interviewing these players, and again, they don't want to be there because they're like, I've just been battered 4-1. Why do I want to be here doing this? Then 12 months later, we were back there and we beat Brentford 1-0, and the feeling is completely different. You're on the pitch and there's nothing quite like it, even as like a fan, is it? A fan working for the club. It's about the pinnacle you can get over than actually being out there playing on the pitch. But there you go. You've moved nicely once again into the next question I had for you there. Actually, I was going to say about the fact that your recruitment this summer, very quiet. I think of all the clubs in the division, I think you've probably been the quietest, actually. I mean, are you happy with that? I mean, I think most fans would have agreed, actually, you did have one of the strongest squads in the division last season, so maybe it doesn't need massive changes.
Well, we could have done with a striker on deadline day, but we missed out on the 11th hour. But I think when you look at our squad, when you sort of strip it back, we've got a decent enough core there anyway. I was really, really pleased in the summer to not see us chop and change, because we've been in that position before where we lost out in the playoffs and not got promoted and made radical changes. Then you're almost starting from scratch, aren't you? And it doesn't work, and you've still got a few players there, and it's just absolutely toxic. So, we've recruited well. We had to replace the two goalkeepers. Marek Steck was on big money and didn't play really last season. Nigel Clough didn't really fancy him, although he was a great sort of supporter of the club and will be well respected by all the fans. Nathan Bishop on a years-long loan from Manchester United. They wanted him to go higher. I find that quite baffling, actually, that they've not sent him out anywhere. But we've replaced them with two good keepers in Scott Flinders, who's very experienced at this level, and Christy Pims, who for years was excellent at Exeter and has already kept us in a few games. So we've recruited well in that department. Obviously, we had Matty Longstaff for half a season last year and Jamie Murphy as well. We've replaced them with good players. Hiram Boateng, who's come in from MK Dons, even though he's not really played because he'd been injured, looked a bright spark in pre-season and really slotted into how we want to play. Every area that we've recruited in, we've recruited well, and we've done better than what we had last year. And I think what's also sort of helped us this year as well, we've changed the shape slightly. We no longer play with a back four. We go play with a back three now with wing backs, and that really sort of helps us dominate games on home soil. It's not worked for us away from home up until Doncaster, but there's more than one way to skin a cat, isn't there? So I think in terms of recruitment, very, very pleased indeed to see where we are. We've not thrown money at it. I think a lot of fans will look at it and say, oh, the Mansfield, they've got big money. Well, if you look at the financial records and the history, we're actually, compared to where we were the last time we were in the playoffs, which was 2-3 seasons ago now, just before the season before the half season with COVID, we've got a much better squad in terms of ability, experience, with promotions, etc. on the CV at probably 30-40% the cost. And, Nigel Clough and his recruitment team have got to take huge credit for that. And if we don't get promoted this season, we might be having a different conversation this time next year in terms of who's in charge. But, building blocks, very few football clubs are patient with managers now and the vision where they want to go. Mansfield seem the exception to the rule. So, yes, frustrated that we've perhaps not brought in that one extra player, but I think we had a lot of core there. And like I said before, from pain comes glory. So you use that, don't you, to push on. And I think a lot of these players will be doing that.
Well, you did mention Hiram Boateng there. I did actually think when I was looking for your squad, he stands out to me as a good signing. You've let Danny Johnson go on loan to Walsall, and he's obviously had a very bright start to the season for them. Is that a bit of frustration, or is it a case of it just didn't work out for him at Field Mill? Sometimes players just don't fit at clubs, do they?
90% of the fans, well, I say 90%, that's probably a bit unfair, but there's a sort of two camps. This camp, every time Danny Johnson scores a goal, it's on Facebook in one of the supporters groups. And then there's the fans that see that it didn't work. Nigel Clough brought him in last summer. He obviously had a great record at Leyton Orient, and he looked poised to be that guy. And then he started playing for us and it didn't work out. what a lot of people don't understand and don't appreciate about football, and this is one of my biggest bugbears, if we ever did like a football version of Room 101, this would go straight in. They don't appreciate that footballers are human beings. So when they move from one club to one club, it's like you moving from a job. You've got to uproot your entire family. You've got to find new schools for your kids. You've got to say goodbye to your parents, your friends, your loved ones, and move to a completely different area. Danny Johnson did that. He moved from the capital up to Mansfield, and for whatever reason, it didn't fit in. We've seen it with so many players over the years, and he just couldn't get a foot in. He didn't start the season well, and he was just left out. And then towards the back end of last season, didn't feature at all, and it was a no-brainer that he was going to go. Yes, if you're being cynical, you can sort of say it's frustrating that he's gone to a League Two rival in Walsall, and he's banging the goals in for them. But look at the table. Where are they? Mid-table, 8 points. Where are we? 7th, 12 points kicking on. It will balance it out over the course of the season. And when the January transfer window comes, when we cash in on him, nobody will be disappointed then. So it's just about, biting your tongue a little bit and just sort of saying when things don't work, they don't work.
Yeah. I mean, we've got a similar thing at Carlisle with, Paddy Madden. Obviously, he's at Stockport now. We were the first club to bring him over from Ireland to the UK. And I think he made something like 30 appearances for us and scored 1 or 2 goals, I think. He just never clicked for us. And then he went to Yeovil, did well on loan there. And rather than bringing him back and playing him, we just sold him to Yeovil in the end. And our fans have regretted it ever since, but he just didn't work for us with us. It just happens sometimes.
The thing is, as well, it's all about their mental health and happiness behind the scenes as well. If they're not settled at a club, they're not going to kick on. They're not going to perform to you. They're not going to want to turn up to work and play. Obviously, I was in and around it a little bit last year and saw him on the training ground. And I don't want to be throwing any players under the bus or anything like that, or painting anyone in a negative picture. But there were players that walked in and said good morning to you and had a smile on their face. Yeah. And then there were others that didn't. Make up your mind on who that was from what I've said. Read between the lines.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Before we get finished, can I ask you about Nigel Clough, your gaffer? He's been in charge for, it'll be 2 years, I think, in a couple of months' time. Yeah. Happy with what he's done so far? Happy with the job he's doing?
Personally delighted. I mean, there'll be a proportion of fans again that are disappointed that we didn't get promotion last season. Some will see it as another failure. But when you look at the time he was brought in and the job he was asked to do, and you analyse that, you have to take your hat off to him. Mm-hmm. He comes in, mid-pandemic, where we've got one of the biggest budgeted squads in League Two, with players who, if we're being completely honest, would probably struggle to get in a conference side in terms of the way they were performing. He has to trim the squad. At the same time he's trimming the squad, he's also got to bring a new squad in and balance the books in a COVID season where you're not having revenue coming through the doors in terms of ticket sales and other bits and bobs which come with it. He does that. He keeps us up. He keeps us in a respectable position. We even have a bit of a decent run. There was a small point where we could have had a little push towards the playoffs at the end of that season. We didn't have enough in the squad, and I think we all accepted that. Last season was frustrating. We obviously had a poor start after the first 3 games. We didn't win in 14 games, and we had a lot of injuries and suspensions, but then we kicked on. It absolutely turned out to be one of the best seasons as supporters we've had in a long time. The home attendances shot through the roof. On the back of that, we were selling out games towards the back end of the season. We've had record season ticket sales this season. It looks like we're going to get around 8,500, 9,000 there against Bradford on Saturday. We've been regularly beating the 5-6K mark at home in league games. Even for the Papa John's Trophy game, we only usually open the lower tier for that and expect around 500. We hit over, just under 2,000 fans there for that one. So it says a lot about what he's building. He's brought in a very, very good squad. He's put them in a good shape. All right, there's been some bumps in the road, but nothing is ever a smooth path. And I think what he's really showing is that longevity is the key. You look at, Salford for a prime example. They missed out on the playoffs, didn't they, by 1 or 2 points towards the back end of last season. They had a really good manager in place, and then they sacked him. And then the new managers come in, pretty much overhauled the squad. All right, they're in, 4th place at the moment, a couple of points above us. But when it goes sour for him, and if it does, he'll get the sack, and it'll be a similar thing again. And all of these clubs that, are reactive because they're not getting what they want, the one common denominator is they're not having patience. They're not allowing somebody to build and, put a project up. I liken it to building a house. You can put a house up in a day if you wanted to, but if the foundations aren't done properly, one storm that's blowing over, and it's a mess to sort out. So Nigel Clough is the storm fixer.
We're in exactly the same situation with Paul Simpson in that he's been given a 3-year deal, and it's very clear that that's the first manager we've given a 3-year deal that I can think of in recent memory. And the reason he's given that is because the board are like, right, take your time and build something proper here. Let's not be silly here and try and go I'm trying to think of the boom and bust, basically. You know what I mean? Like, as we tried under Keith Curle, and that basically is why we ended up in a mess for 2 or 3 years because of the ridiculous contracts we had.
Let's not forget with his involvement in that.
You've done it there. I'm gonna have to get the clown car noise on. We bleep out his name. So
I personally hate him. I'm with you. Can't stand the bloke.
So but I'm gonna have to remember to put the clown car noise in now. You're absolutely right, isn't it? It's about patience at this level, isn't it? Sometimes, and in building something for the long term, and managers like Clough and Simpson aren't the youngest, but it doesn't mean they're not capable of building something together, is it really? So there you go. Right, before we do properly finish up, you want to give us a couple of names of any danger men to look out for in your squad?
Well, the tough thing we've got at the minute is we're not being able to, in the position at the minute, to pick an 11 based on the best 11. Who's available. Again, we've got these knocks and niggles and illnesses. Again, against the Doncaster game, we named Elliot Hewitt in the starting lineup. Riley Harbottle walks out. Hewitt's nowhere to be seen. He's thrown up in the toilet. So it could be an interesting one. Personally, Lucas Akins gets a lot of stick, but when he plays up front, he had a really good game against Doncaster, holds the ball up well and gets some dangerous balls into some good areas. Ollie Clark's coming back into his own. He didn't feature a lot. He's the captain, didn't feature a lot last season. A lot of fans were sort of saying, he'll be on his way. He really, really played well, as does George Maris. But for me, I think one to watch, other than the obvious of Stephen McLaughlin down the left-hand side, I think you've got to keep your eye on the likes of Anthony Hartigan, who we brought in from AFC Wimbledon after he was released. We didn't need him. We didn't need another midfielder at all, but he's come in and played very well, gets on the ball and does really, really well. So I keep an eye on him. And basically our midfield, if we pick the right midfield, especially at home, you're going to struggle. I mean, Mansfield's not the greatest place to come to on a Tuesday night, and neither's Carlisle, to be fair, when we have the reverse fixture later on in the season. But I'd just watch it on iFollow and wouldn't bother travelling because it'll be a tough night for you, to be honest. At home. It
depends for us, really. Which, I mean, again, we've had the problem with the start of the season. We've had 11 players out injured, and yet we still find ourselves in mid-table, which is why we're actually quietly optimistic about how we can do this season. And midfield's an area for us where we brought in Owen Moxen. Our fans will tell you about from Annan Athletic in the summer. He's a Carlisle lad. He was started out on our academy and left when he was 16, but he's gone to Annan. He's done his hard yards there, and you would never guess he'd never played professional football before because he's took it to like a duck to water. He's been incredible.
We've got one like that. James Gayle, who's a young striker, he's only sort of 18, 19 years old. He was playing at Long Eaton, I think, last year, and bagging goals signed in the summer on deadline day. And because we've got Rhys Oates out injured at the minute, he's sort of getting a bit more of a look in. He's really, really physical. So probably shouldn't have omitted him from the one to watch, really. So there you go.
Well, you've been very generous with your time, Greg. Thank you very much. And just before you go, what's your prediction for the game?
Oh, with us being, if we were away, I think I'd probably put it down to a draw. But with us being at home, we always make a lot of noise at home. It's become a really good place to go. I'm gonna say, we due a clean sheet. I'm gonna go a 2-0 win for the Stags, and fingers crossed that doesn't come back to bite me on the backside.
Well, it's rare that we don't score this season, so that's an interesting prediction. Craig, thanks very much for your time, and best of luck for the rest of the season after this game. I was going to say this weekend, but it's a midweek, isn't it? After the midweek game.
Always a pleasure. Safe trip to everyone coming down.
Yeah, big thanks once again to Craig for giving up his time to speak to us about Mansfield Town. Seems very confident, doesn't he, Dan, going into this season? Despite the fact that obviously they've been very quiet in the transfer market, which we'll talk about maybe a little bit more later, they seem pretty happy with what they've got.
Yeah, we've got quite a good squad, haven't we? I don't think they need too much kerfuffle. Obviously, we'll discuss in depth in a minute. Yeah. But no, I think they're going to be up there, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, in terms of away pubs for the Mansfield, the recommended pub is the Bold Forester, which is on Botany Avenue, and the postcode is NG18SN. SNG? That should be a 5NG, I think.
5NG.
5NG, I do apologise. That's Simon's fault, by the way, if Simon's listening. He sent me the wrong postcode there. Let's move straight into the Mansfield one then, Dan. Talk about them. Referee for this one is Sam Allison. This is obviously Tuesday night game at 7:45 kickoff. So Sam Allison's referee. It's his third season in the EFL. He's taken charge of 3 games so far this season, handing out 8 yellow cards and 1 red card. Funny enough, that 1 red card was to Paddy Bannon in Stockport against Swindon game. Last season he handed out 126 yellows and 7 red cards in 31 games. He last took charge of a United game. What a game to take charge of, eh? 2-1 win at Oldham. Feeney's last minute winner. And to be fair, he refereed that game quite well from what I remember. You didn't really notice him much, did he? He just got on with the game, and it was a good, very competitive contest between 2 teams. So yeah, fair play. Head-to-head record is 86 meeting between the 2 sides. Carlisle have won 33. The Stags have won 33 as well, and 19 have ended in a draw. In terms of their squad, Dan, looking through it, and obviously you mentioned just before, transfer-wise, they've not done much this summer, have they? Been very quiet.
No, but they've signed some decent players, because the one that stands out is the 2 keepers, Flinders and Christy Pims. That's 2 good goalkeepers.
For this level, definitely.
Yeah.
What I would say about that is Christy Pims one of those ones. I've always been so impressed with his shot stopping, but he is only about 5'11".
Yeah.
And if you get your big men in and around him, he's not going to be able to claim the ball as well. I remember when he was at Exeter, wasn't he, in those playoff games?
Yeah.
And when we targeted him a little bit, he did struggle a bit. So it's one of those things you look and you're kind of hoping that Edmonton's fit for that game, because he'd be the perfect person to getting on him. And on set pieces, you've got to get Huntington near him, haven't you, really, to put him off as much as anything, or even Menace.
It's zero surprise that they've got the usual couple of loanees off Notts Forest.
Well, apparently, as Craig was saying to me, that apparently Finn Back was one they targeted as well. But obviously, we had the advantage of Simo's good relationship with Steve Cooper.
Well, I'm informed that Riley Harbottle was on our radar, who's gone to Mansfield. So it may be a trade-off. We'll take one, you have the other.
Yeah, he's very well thought of, Harbottle, isn't he? I think he's one that we really think highly of, like Back. So good signing for Mansfield. I mean, you've obviously mentioned the 2 keepers there. Even Hiram Boateng coming from MK Dons is another good one, isn't he? And in terms of going out the other way, Tyrese Sinclair went to Rochdale. He did quite well against us, but he's clearly not one who was surplus to requirements there. But Danny Johnson going out on loan, he just didn't seem to settle there, did he? He seemed to struggle a little bit. Didn't really find the form.
Yeah.
Just doesn't work at some clubs, does it? Obviously, he's gone to Walsall and he's gone for fun there. So it's a frustrating one.
Yeah.
But that's the one area, I suppose, when you look at their squad, they haven't really replaced him, have they?
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, but they do look a good, solid team, don't they?
Midfield's the area I look, and I think, you've got James Perch and Stephen Quinn, bags of experience. George Lapsley as well, in midfield as well. He's
Jordan Bowery.
Yeah, exactly. And
Maris, there's some good names there,
Yeah, I mean, even defence, John Joe O'Toole, I think most teams in this division would take him as a defender.
Yeah.
He's an absolute head case. He'll get a couple of red cards a season, but in a game when you need to dig in, he'll be there, right at the front where you'll be really fighting.
Yeah.
So there you go. Last time out, really good result for them, wasn't it? 3-1 win at Doncaster. I think this end Doncaster's unbeaten start of the season, this one.
Yeah, and it's always a bit of a grudge match, this, going back to the miners' strike, because I won't bore everyone with my historical knowledge, but obviously Doncaster, South Yorkshire, big strike place, and Mansfield Notts went to work, and there's a lot of bad feeling.
Yes, definitely. It's been it's one of those ones, isn't it? And then, by all accounts, they took a big allocation, and they maybe that's what made the difference. Because as Craig mentioned to us, they've been so good at home this season, but they've really struggled away from home. But then one game where they're able to take a big allocation, and then they get the result. Took the lead through Ollie Clark, pegged back by a Lee Tomlin penalty just before half time. But then into the second half, George Maris and Lucas Aikens penalty got them all 3 points, and I think they'll be pretty pleased with that. In terms of the current form table, although they're not right up there, they are 4th actually in the last 6 games. So that's one of those things that will start to make more sense over the next few games when, about 10 games into the season, that form table will be certainly be a better indicator maybe than just looking at the league table before games, won't it? So there you go. But yeah, in terms of Mansfield, fully expect them to be up there in the season, aren't we? I think we all predict them to be. So tough game this is going to be. Let's talk about United. It is. Big question over this one, I suppose, is if Callum Guy's fit, does he come straight back in?
It's whether Guy and Edmondson are fit, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'd say Guy's probably got more chance than Edmondson. Obviously, we haven't heard the latest in the pre-match press stuff, but yeah, it's basically whether they're fit or not. Edmondson, even if he is, will he come from the bench, giving Patrick the start?
Yeah.
If he's not fit, will Fishburne even be on the bench? You never know.
Could be, He's got. I mean, you may look at it. Well, you know what? He's got a goal in that midweek game.
Yeah.
He'll be confident. Let's give the lad a run out.
Where does Stretton seem to miss a couple?
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure Stretton will be on there anyway. But you maybe give him a chance to be on the bench and part of the first team squad again. The question there obviously is if Guy's not fitted to whether it's Devitt or Harris, isn't it really? And for me, I'd go for Devitt, definitely at Harrogate. Maybe to play 1 and 1 and 1 in the other, basically.
Yeah, well, I would play, if I had to go 1 for 1, I'd play Devitt at Harrogate and Harris probably where Mansfield will likely be a tougher game. So
yeah, definitely, absolutely. Yeah. Yes, I mean in terms of that, team-wise, we picked the same goalkeeper and back four, wouldn't we? Back five, even. Sorry. Yeah. And then it's just literally those two places that is the big question about, I suppose. So,
yeah.
There you go. Right, should we do some predictions then, Dan? Do you want to go first?
Mansfield, I'll take a 1-1 draw every day of the week.
Okay.
Christy and Dennis.
It's got to be, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just my stock answer. KD 14 every game.
You're taking my answer there. I've done them every single game this season. And for the Mansfield game, I'm going to go the same as you. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw in that one. I just think I would 100% take that any day of the week. And John Mellish will get the goal in that one. Get his third of the season. So there you go. Should we let's have Mike's predictions now. Here's his prediction for the Mansfield one.
I'm going to back a 1-1 draw with Jamie Devitt getting our goal.
So yeah, Jamie Devitt to score on that one. Is okay, that'll be an interesting one if it does finish a 1-1 draw to see who exactly gets the bonus point and maximum if they get the score. Right, there you go. Yeah. Just an update in terms of the points for the prediction competition between the three of us. It's level neck and neck with me and you now, isn't it? 6 each. And Mike's just slowly creeping up on 3 points, but he's still lagging behind, isn't he? So
yeah.
So there you go. Right, should we try and get the answer to Mike's question before we do the X-Files?
Yes.
Right. What are we going with? I think Workington was the one I wasn't 100% on, but now I think about it, I'm pretty sure he did have a loan there. So
he was young when he went.
Yeah.
I'm talking 18. Then he went to Falkirk on loan.
Absolutely. I completely forgot about that one. Really, really well remember that. So we're going Carlisle. Was it 6 clubs other than Carlisle that you said?
Carlisle and Harrogate plus 6.
Carlisle, Harrogate.
Workington and
Falkirk. Darlington he's at now, obviously.
Yeah, he transferred to Yeovil.
Yeovil.
Before he went to Darlington.
And obviously in between that he had a spell at
Wrexham.
Was it Wrexham? I thought it was York City.
No, he's been to York, but he was also at Wrexham. That'll be the one that throws people. When he was at Yeovil, he didn't play much, and he went to Wrexham on loan. Then he joined Darlington. Then he had his big spell at Harrogate, where he had a loan spell at York last year, I think it was.
So we're going Workington, Falkirk, Wrexham, Yeovil, Darlington
and York.
York. Okay, that's
and of course he's back at Darlington this season, as we will hear soon.
Well, yeah, let's see if we've got that right. I'm fairly sure we have, but let's see what the answer is.
So while he was with us, we loaned him out to Workington and Falkirk, and then he signed for Yeovil permanently, had a loan spell at Wrexham. He signed for Darlington before he signed for Harrogate. Then he had a loan spell at York, and now he's back at Darlington.
Well, there you go. Well done, Dan, because I completely forgot about his spell at Wrexham. In fact, I'd forgotten about Yeovil as well, weirdly enough. So I remember there was a team in Scotland, and I wasn't 100% sure if it was Falkirk or not, but there you go. Right, let's get things wrapped up. Let's do the X-File section. A busy week in terms of goals and a few transfers as well, isn't there?
Yeah, takes a deep breath. Naki Wells scored twice in Bristol City's 3-2 win at Blackburn. Jack Marriott scored for Peterborough in a 2-1 defeat at Portsmouth. Sam Cosgrove scored twice on his debut for Plymouth in a dramatic 3-2 win at Derby.
They were 2-0 down at half-time, weren't they, Plymouth, in this one? So, I mean, you know, maybe Plymouth is one of those clubs like Aberdeen where it just works for Sam Cosgrove.
Yeah.
Might be. But there you go.
Ryan Loft scored for Bristol Rovers again in a 2-2 draw at Morecambe. Andy Cook scored in Bradford's 2-1 win over his old club also.
I mean, last season we scored against them, he got a bit of stick, didn't he? So I'd imagine it'd be the same in this one. I think they're going to be heavily reliant on him for goals this season, aren't they, Bradford? Yeah.
Concrete Rod scored for Crewe again in 2-1 defeat to Stevenage. Tristan Abraham scored in East Lee's 2-1 defeat at Bromley. Kedwin Scott scored in Notts County's 5-0 win against Dagenham. Adam Campbell scored in Gateshead's 4-1 win over Maidstone. Danny Devine scored a brilliant, very John Mellish-esque goal in their 3-3 draw with Kingsland Town.
Isn't it more Zlatan Ibrahimovic? But then the same thing, aren't they, Mellish and Ibrahimovic? So there you go.
Well, yeah. Mark Beck, who we just obviously talked about, scored in Darlow's 3-2 win over Boston. Dan Wordsworth scored in Workington's 3-2 defeat in the FA Cup at South Shields.
I mean, Workington were unlucky there, aren't they? Because that's the toughest game they could have had, really, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Pretty much.
And midweek, Lewis Alexandra scored his first goal for South Shields with a 2-1 win over Guiseley. And Connor Tinian scored for Workington in a 3-0 win over Ramsbottom.
I mean, it looks like Workington have finally found a bit of form now, don't they?
Yeah,
they struggled a bit at the start of the season, but they're picking up a bit.
It was deadline day last week, as we've already said. Sam Cosgrove joined Plymouth on a season-long loan. Harry McCurdy joined Hibs from Swindon for an undisclosed fee. This got announced at 1:30 in the morning, and there was complete radio silence till late afternoon, which, given what old Harry's like on his socials...
Quite impressive, actually.
Apparently they were waiting FIFA clearance to confirm it had happened.
Yeah.
And then a couple of random ones. Liam McCarran has joined Port Vale on a season-long loan from Stoke.
Yeah.
And Brad Young signed for Ayr United on a season-long loan from Aston Villa.
If you haven't seen it, go and look at the photo they took of his signing unveiling, because it's bizarre, isn't it? He looks miserable as hell for a start, and then there's 2 shirts hanging up on coat hangers behind him on the net. Very strange.
Yeah. Lee Miller's son, Lennon, who I think we've mentioned previously.
He was on the bench.
Made his debut for Motherwell, becoming their youngest ever player in the process.
Well, the thing is that the manager actually said, didn't he would have played him sooner, but you're not allowed to play a player before the age of 16 in Scotland.
Yeah.
Basically. So the chances are he will remain their youngest ever player, because they won't be able to pick anyone particularly younger.
One piece of bad news. Alan Pope was hospitalised after a vicious attack, allegedly by a Chesterfield player, in the car park at Boundary Park after the game between the two sides. We're not going to make any allegations about any players.
We'll just do a little clarification here, because some of the rumours going on the internet, it's not Mike Jones that the rumour is, because there's been a lot of talk about this and it's not, so...
Allegedly. Allegedly, yeah.
Yes, exactly. So there you go. That's it, isn't it, Dan? All wrapped up. There you go.
Busy week.
A very busy week indeed. Thanks once again to our sponsors, the London branch, for sponsoring the podcast. Always appreciated. But we'll be back next week with a preview of the Wimbledon game, won't we, Dan? So
I was just trying to think who we play next.
Wimbleden. I'm looking forward to that one, because my nephew Miles is going to be the mascot for that game.
Oh, cool.
So that'll be a nice little one to see. So it should be a good one. And, I should say actually as well, we've got the interviews lined up now. We've got one lined up definitely, and we've got hopefully a couple more as well to come. But the one that we've got lined up, I just need to speak to the person just to finalise a date and time with them, don't we, Don? So that'll be a bell to that one.
Well, I need to check my work, etc.
Exactly, see if we can fit both of us in as well. Brilliantly. Right, that's it, Dan. Thanks very much for joining me. Always appreciated. Thanks everyone for listening, and up the Blues.
Up the Blues.